The massive crystalline ship floated silently in the darkness of space, its transparent walls glowing with soft blue light. Inside the command center, Ambassador Thailand stared at the star charts displayed before him. His body was tall and thin, made of what looked like living crystal that sparkled when he moved. He had been looking at the same maps for hours, and his patience was running out. 47 years, he said to his assistant, his voice sounding like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. We have been talking about this for 47 years, and still nothing is decided. The assistant, a younger Zephyrian named Veltar, nodded, slowly. The Kellites refuse to listen to reason, Ambassador. They do not understand that we found this system first. Thailand turned to look out the window at the 3 planets that hung in space before them. The Nexus system was beautiful, with swirling clouds of purple and gold gas surrounding the planets. But beauty was not why they were here. Deep inside those planets were rare metals that could make spaceships fly faster than light. Without these metals, space travel would be much slower and more dangerous. Our ancestors discovered this system 3,000 years ago, Thailand said firmly. We have the records to prove it. The law is clear. On the other side of the system, another huge ship waited in the darkness. This one looked very different from the Zephyrian vessel. It was made of organic material that pulsed with green and blue lights, like a giant sea creature swimming through space. Inside, Commander Blexith moved his tentacles nervously as he spoke to his war council. Blexith was a Kellite, an amphibious being that looked like a cross between an octopus and a dolphin. His skin was smooth and wet, and he breathed through gills on the sides of his neck. His people had built their civilization underwater on their home planet, creating beautiful cities beneath the waves. The crystal heads think that finding something first means they own it, Blexith said, his voice making bubbling sounds as he spoke. But we are the ones who explored every planet, every moon, every asteroid in this system. We mapped everything. We know this place better than they ever will. His lieutenant, a female Kellite named Plixara, swam closer through the water-filled command room. Should we attack, Commander? Our bioships are ready. We could destroy their fleet before they know what happened. Blexith's tentacles twisted as he thought. No, not yet. The Galactic Council would punish us if we started a war without trying to talk first. But if they force our hand. Between the 2 fleets, floating in neutral space, was a large space station that belonged to the Galactic Council. This was where representatives from hundreds of different alien species came to solve problems peacefully. The station looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly, with docking bays for ships from many different worlds. Inside the main meeting hall, beings of all shapes and sizes sat around a circular table. There were insect-like creatures with multiple eyes, gas-based life forms that floated in special containers, and reptilian beings with scales that changed color when they spoke. At the center of the table sat the Chief Arbiter, an ancient being whose species was so old that no one remembered their original name. This is the 237th meeting about the Nexus system, the Chief Arbiter announced, his voice tired and sad. For 47 years, we have tried to help the Zephyrians and Kellites reach an agreement. Every solution we propose, they reject. A small furry creature raised one of its 6 arms. Perhaps we should consider dividing the system. Each side could control half of the planets. Unacceptable, came the immediate response from both the Zephyrian and Kellite representatives. The Chief Arbiter's shoulders sagged. Then we have reached an impasse. If peaceful negotiation cannot resolve this dispute, both parties must consider other options. In the back of the room, a young clerk who had been taking notes raised his hand nervously. There is one possibility we haven't tried, he said quietly. All eyes turned to the small, nervous being. Speak, commanded the Chief Arbiter, the human. Arbitration service, the clerk said, his voice barely above a whisper. They have successfully resolved several territorial disputes in the Outer Rim systems. The room fell silent. Then, slowly, laughter began to fill the air. The Zephyrian representative's crystal body rang like bells as he laughed. The Kellite delegate made loud, gurgling sounds that passed for laughter among his people. Humans? The Zephyrian said, wiping tears from his crystal eyes. Those primitive beings who only learned to fly in space 200 years ago? They are like children playing with toys compared to our ancient civilizations. The Kellite representative nodded agreement, his tentacles writhing with amusement. My grandmother is older than their entire space program. What could such young creatures possibly understand about complex legal matters? But as the laughter died down, both representatives began to think. Maybe these primitive humans could be useful after all. Surely being so young and inexperienced would be easy to convince. They could present their cases to these simple-minded creatures and get a quick ruling in their favor. The chief arbiter looked around the room. Are both parties willing to accept human mediation? After a moment of consideration, both the Zephyrian and Kellite representatives agreed. Neither bothered to research what the humans had actually accomplished in their previous mediations. They simply saw an opportunity to use naive judges who would surely be impressed by their superior technology and ancient claims to the system. The message was sent to Earth that same day. The message arrived at Earth's diplomatic headquarters on a quiet Tuesday morning. Director Han Woo-jin was drinking his coffee and reading reports when his assistant knocked on his door. "Sir, we have received an urgent request from the Galactic Council," said the assistant, a young woman named Park Min-ji. She looked excited and nervous at the same time. Han Woo-jin put down his coffee cup and took the message pad from her hands. As he read, his eyebrows rose higher and higher. A territorial dispute between two major galactic powers? And they specifically asked for human mediation? Park Min-ji nodded eagerly. "Yes, sir. The Zephyrian Confederation and the Kellite Empire have been fighting over something called the Nexus system for almost 50 years. The Galactic Council says they are on the edge of war." Han Woo-jin leaned back in his chair and smiled. This was exactly the kind of opportunity Earth had been waiting for. For the past 50 years, humans had been the new kids in the galaxy, looked down upon by older alien civilizations. Most aliens still thought of humans as violent primitives who had barely learned to leave their own planet. "Get me Admiral Kim Tae-ho," Han Woo-jin said. "Tell him we have a big job." 2 hours later, Admiral Kim Tae-ho sat across from the director, studying the information about the dispute. The admiral was a tall, serious man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had spent 30 years in space, dealing with alien cultures and learning their ways. "This is interesting," the admiral said slowly. Both sides agreed to human mediation very quickly. Usually the older alien races take months to make such decisions. Director Han Woo-jin nodded. "That's what I thought too. It seems almost too easy." "Maybe they think we are stupid," suggested Park Min-ji, who was taking notes in the corner of the room. Both men looked at her, then at each other, and began to laugh. "That's exactly what they think," Admiral Kim Tae-ho said, wiping tears from his eyes. "They probably believe they can trick us into ruling in their favor." Meanwhile, on the Zephyrian flagship, Ambassador Thielen was explaining the situation to his government back home. He stood in his private communication chamber, speaking to a holographic image of the Zephyrian High Council. "The humans are perfect for our needs," Thielen said confidently. "They are young, inexperienced, and easily impressed. When they see our beautiful crystal cities and our ancient historical records, they will surely rule that the Nexus system belongs to us." The High Counselor, an elderly Zephyrian whose crystal body had turned a wise shade of silver, nodded approvingly. "And what do you know about these humans?" Thielen waved one of his crystal hands dismissively. "Very little, and there is very little to know. They come from a small planet called Earth. They have only been traveling in space for about 200 years. Their technology is primitive, their culture is simple, and their understanding of galactic law is almost nothing." "Perfect," said the High Counselor. "Show them our historical documents, impress them with our advanced technology, and they will give us what we want." On the Kellite bioship, Commander Blexith was having a similar conversation with his own government. He floated in his water-filled communication chamber, speaking to a group of Kellite leaders whose images appeared in bubbles of water around him. "The humans will be easy to convince," Blexith said confidently, his tentacles moving gracefully as he spoke. They are a young species with limited understanding of space law. When we show them our detailed exploration records and our advanced biotechnology, they will clearly see that we have the stronger claim. One of the Kellite leaders, an old female with scars from many battles, asked, "What do we know about their previous mediation work?" Blexith's gills fluttered with amusement. "What is there to know? They have handled a few small disputes between minor species in the Outer Rim. Nothing important. Nothing that required real skill or understanding." The old female leader nodded. "Then proceed, but be careful not to appear too confident. Even primitive beings can sometimes be stubborn." What neither the Zephyrians nor the Kellites knew was that the humans had been very busy in the Outer Rim territories. In the past 10 years, the Human Arbitration Service had successfully resolved 23 major disputes, including several that had seemed impossible to solve. There was the Rigel mining conflict, where two alien species had been fighting over mining rights for 15 years. The humans had solved it in 6 days by discovering that both species had been reading the same ancient treaty incorrectly. There was the Centauri trade war, where 4 different alien governments had been imposing tariffs and blockades on each other for decades. The humans had ended it in 1 week by creating a new trade agreement that made everyone richer than they had been before the war started. But the most impressive success had been the Vega colony dispute, where an entire star system had been on the verge of civil war. 7 different alien factions had been fighting over water rights on a desert planet. The humans had solved the problem by showing them how to extract water from the planet's moons, giving everyone more water than they had ever dreamed of having. None of these successes had been widely reported in the galactic media. The older alien civilizations preferred to ignore human achievements, dismissing them as lucky accidents rather than signs of real skill. As the human fleet prepared to leave Earth, Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood on the bridge of his flagship looking out at the stars. His second-in-command, Captain Lee Soo-jin, joined him at the observation window. "Do you think they really believe we are stupid?" she asked. The admiral smiled. "I hope so. It will make our job much easier." The human fleet arrived at the Nexus system 3 days later. Admiral Kim Tae-ho's flagship was much smaller than either the Zephyrian crystal ship or the Kellite bio-vessel, but it moved with quiet confidence through space. Behind it came 11 other human ships, each one carrying specialized equipment and expert teams. Captain Lee Soo-jin stood beside the admiral on the bridge, watching the alien fleets through the main view screen. "They look ready for war," she observed quietly. "They have been ready for war for months," replied Admiral Kim Tae-ho, "but they agreed to try mediation one more time. Let's see if we can give them something better than war." The first meeting took place aboard the neutral Galactic Council station. Ambassador Thielen arrived in a shuttle that sparkled like a jewel, while Commander Blexith came in a ship that looked like a giant fish swimming through space. They both expected a simple meeting where they would present their cases to the primitive humans. Admiral Kim Tae-ho entered the meeting room, wearing a simple blue uniform. With him came Captain Lee Soo-jin and 3 other officers. The humans looked very ordinary compared to the exotic aliens, but their eyes were sharp and intelligent. "Welcome," said Admiral Kim Tae-ho politely. "We understand you have a dispute over ownership of this star system." Thielen's crystal body rang softly as he spoke. "Indeed, my people discovered the Nexus system 3,000 years ago. We have ancient records that prove our claim. Surely this is a simple matter of recognizing historical rights." "Commander," Blexith's tentacles moved restlessly. "Discovery means nothing without proper exploration. My people have mapped every planet, every moon, every asteroid in this system. We know it better than anyone. Our claim is based on actual work, not dusty, old papers." Admiral Kim Tae-ho listened carefully to both arguments, asking a few questions but mostly staying quiet. Finally, he spoke. "We will need to examine all of your evidence personally. Please provide us with complete access to your historical records, survey data, and economic information." Both aliens looked surprised. Thielen's crystal features shifted slightly. "Surely you only need our official position statements. The facts are quite clear." "We prefer to examine all the facts ourselves," said Captain Lee Soo-jin firmly. That is how we do our job. Commander Blexith made a bubbling sound that might have been laughter. Very well, but you will see that our exploration records are far more complete than anything the crystal heads can provide. What happened next surprised both alien fleets. Instead of staying on the space station and reading documents, the human ships spread out across the entire Nexus system. Small human vessels began visiting every planet, every moon, and every large asteroid. They deployed scanning equipment, archaeological teams, and research drones. Dr. Kim Ji-won led the archaeological team to the first planet. She was a small, energetic woman who had spent 20 years studying alien civilizations. As her team set up their equipment on the planet's surface, she noticed something strange. These rock formations don't look natural, she told her assistant, pointing to what looked like ruins buried under centuries of dust and sand. Back on the flagship, Lieutenant Commander Choi Min-ho was analyzing the economic data provided by both sides. He was a quiet man who was very good with numbers and patterns. As he studied the information, he began to notice things that didn't make sense. "Captain Lee," he called out, "you need to see this." Captain Lee Soo-jin came over to his workstation and looked at the data on his screen. "What am I looking at?" "Communications between weapons manufacturers and negotiators from both sides," Choi Min-ho explained. "It looks like companies that make weapons and military equipment have been secretly encouraging this conflict to continue." Meanwhile, down on the second planet, Dr. Kim Ji-won made an even more shocking discovery. Her team had been digging at what they thought was a natural rock formation, but their scanners showed something incredible underneath. "Admiral," she called over the communication system, "you need to come down here immediately." 2 hours later, Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood in an underground chamber that was clearly not natural. The walls were covered with symbols and pictures that neither human nor alien had ever seen before. Strange machines sat silent in the darkness, covered with dust, but still intact after thousands of years. "This isn't Zephyrian or Kellite," Dr. Kim Ji-won said with excitement. "This is something else entirely, something much older." Captain Lee Soo-jin ran her scanner over one of the ancient machines. "The technology here is more advanced than anything I've ever seen. These power readings are incredible." Over the next week, the human teams made discovery after discovery. There were ruins on all 3 planets, all belonging to the same unknown civilization. The technology was thousands of years more advanced than anything the current galactic civilizations possessed. Most importantly, the archaeological evidence showed that this mysterious species had lived in the Nexus system long before either the Zephyrians or Kellites had ever traveled to this part of space. Lieutenant Commander Choi Min-ho continued his investigation into the economic data and found more evidence of corruption. Weapons companies from both civilizations had been bribing negotiators, providing false information, and even sabotaging peace talks to keep the conflict going. "They've been playing both sides against each other," he reported to Admiral Kim Tae-ho. "The longer this dispute continues, the more money they make selling weapons and defense systems." Admiral Kim Tae-ho looked at all the evidence his teams had gathered. Ancient ruins that proved neither side had originally owned the system, technology that could benefit the entire galaxy, and proof that powerful corporations had been deliberately preventing peace for their own profit. "Assemble both delegations," he told Captain Lee Soo-jin. "It's time to show them what we've found." The meeting room aboard the human flagship was much smaller than the grand chambers on the alien vessels, but it felt more serious somehow. Ambassador Thielen and Commander Blexith sat across from each other at a simple metal table, both expecting the humans to finally announce their decision about who owned the Nexus system. Admiral Kim Tae-ho entered the room with Captain Lee Soo-jin and Dr. Kim Ji-won. The humans looked calm, but there was something different about them now. Their eyes were harder, more determined. "Thank you both for coming," Admiral Kim Tae-ho said politely. "We have completed our investigation and have some important information to share with you." Thielen's crystal body sparkled with confidence. "Excellent. I trust you have seen that our historical claims are clearly superior." Commander Blexith's tentacles moved restlessly. "Our exploration records speak for themselves. No one knows this system better than the Kellites." Admiral Kim Tae-ho activated a holographic display in the center of the table. Three-dimensional images of the Nexus system's planets appeared, but these images showed things that neither alien delegation had ever seen before. The Nexus system does not belong to either of your civilizations, the Admiral said quietly. It never did. Both aliens stared at the hologram in shock. The images showed vast underground cities, ancient temples, and technology that looked far more advanced than anything in the current galaxy. Dr. Kim Ji-won stepped forward and pointed to the ruins. These structures are at least 5,000 years old. They belong to a civilization we are calling the Nexus Builders. They lived and died in this system long before either of your peoples ever traveled this far from home. Thailand's crystal. Features shifted into a pattern that showed confusion and anger. This is impossible. Our records show that the system was empty when we found it. Your records only show what was visible on the surface, Dr. Kim Ji-won replied. The Nexus Builders built their cities underground. Your people never looked deep enough to find them. Commander Blexith's gills fluttered rapidly, a sign of stress among his people. Even if this is true, these builders are dead. The system is still available for colonization. Captain Lee Soo-jin activated another part of the hologram. Now the display showed detailed scans of the ancient technology hidden beneath the planet's surfaces. The Nexus Builders' technology is centuries ahead of current galactic standards. These machines could revolutionize space travel, energy production, and planetary engineering for the entire galaxy. The hologram showed power generators that could provide clean energy for entire star systems, terraforming equipment that could turn dead worlds into gardens, and transportation devices that could move ships across the galaxy in minutes instead of months. This system should be a joint archaeological preserve and research station, Admiral Kim Tae-ho said firmly. It should benefit all the civilizations in the galaxy, not become a battleground between two peoples. But Thailand was not convinced. His crystal body began to glow brighter, showing his anger. Ancient ruins do not change the legal facts. We still have the stronger claim to this system. Commander Blexith agreed, his tentacles writhing with frustration. We did not come here to discuss archaeology. We came here for a decision about ownership. Choose which civilization has the legal right to control this system. Admiral Kim Tae-ho looked at both aliens with disappointment. Then he activated one more part of the holographic display. This time, the images showed communication records, financial transactions, and secret meetings. Lieutenant Commander Choi Min-ho stepped forward to explain what they were seeing. For the past 15 years, weapons manufacturers from both of your civilizations have been working together to prevent peace in this system. The hologram showed executives from Zephyrian crystal tech companies meeting secretly with Kelite bioweapons producers. It showed bribes being paid to negotiators on both sides. Most shocking of all, it showed how these companies had been providing false information and sabotaging peace talks to keep the conflict going. Your own military-industrial complexes have been playing you against each other, Admiral Kim Tae-ho said with disgust. Every time you were close to reaching an agreement, these companies would leak false intelligence or create new incidents to restart the fighting. Both Thailand and Commander Blexith stared at the evidence in horror. The communications were clear and undeniable. Companies from their own civilizations had been profiting from their suffering while pretending to support their causes. This changes nothing, Thailand said finally, though his voice sounded less confident than before. We still require a legal ruling. The system must belong to someone. Agreed, Commander Blexith said, but his tentacles had stopped moving, and his gills were barely fluttering. Make your decision, human. Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood up slowly and looked directly at both alien leaders. When he spoke, his voice was cold and hard. You have 48 hours to accept joint stewardship of this system and begin peaceful archaeological cooperation. You will work together to study the Nexus Builders' technology and share it with the entire galactic community. Both aliens looked shocked by the human's tone. This was not the timid, easily manipulated species they had expected. And if we refuse? Thailand asked, his crystal body beginning to pulse with angry light. Admiral Kim Tae-ho's expression did not change. If you refuse, we will implement our own solution to this problem. Commander Blexith made a sound that was unmistakably laughter among his people. Implement your solution? You have 12 small ships. We have entire fleets. Thailand joined in the laughter, his crystal body ringing like bells. Young species always think they are braver than they really are. You understand nothing of real military power. Both alien commanders left the meeting convinced that they could simply ignore the humans and proceed with their war. Their fleets began powering up weapons and preparing for battle. Neither side noticed the small human ships that quietly moved toward the asteroid belt at the edge of the system. 48 hours passed slowly in the Nexus system. The Zephyrian and Kellite fleets moved closer to each other, their weapons charging with deadly energy. Both sides had completely dismissed the human ultimatum and were preparing for the war they had wanted all along. Ambassador Thailand stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the enemy ships approach. His crystal body glowed with excitement and anticipation. Finally, he said to his officers, we will settle this dispute the proper way. On the Kellite bioship, Commander Blexith's tentacles moved rapidly as he coordinated his fleet's attack formation. The crystal heads think they can intimidate us with their pretty lights, he told his crew. Today we show them the power of Kellite bioweapons. The human ships appeared to be retreating toward the edge of the system, which made both alien commanders laugh with satisfaction. Admiral Kim Tae-ho's flagship and its escort vessels were moving away from the battle zone, apparently afraid to face real military power. Look how they run, Thailand said mockingly. These primitive humans learned their place quickly. Commander Blexith watched the human ships on his scanner and nodded agreement. They realized they were out of their depth. Now we can finish what we started decades ago. The two fleets continued moving toward each other, weapons ready, shields at maximum power. Both sides had been preparing for this moment for months, and their crews were eager for battle. Then something impossible happened. Every single ship in both fleets suddenly went dark. Weapons powered down, shields collapsed, and engines stopped working. The massive vessels continued floating forward through space, but they were completely helpless, carried only by momentum. Ambassador Thielen stared in shock at his command console as every light went out except for the emergency systems. What is happening? He demanded, but his officers had no answers. Their advanced crystal technology had simply stopped working. On the Kellite flagship, Commander Blexith watched in horror as his living bioship went into a deep sleep. The organic walls stopped pulsing with life, the bioweapons became dormant, and even the ship's natural healing systems shut down. This is impossible, he whispered. Nothing can affect our biotechnology like this. Both fleet commanders tried desperately to contact their other ships, but the communication systems were also offline. They could only watch helplessly as their mighty fleets drifted powerlessly through space. Then, from the asteroid belt at the edge of the system, something began to appear. At first, it looked like just another large asteroid, but as it moved closer, both alien fleets realized they were looking at something incredible. A massive space station, 3 times larger than either of their flagships, slowly emerged from where it had been hidden. Its hull was covered with technology that looked familiar but wrong somehow. Captain Lee Soo-jin stood beside Admiral Kim Tae-ho on the human flagship, watching the alien fleets drift helplessly. The Nexus Builder weapon systems worked perfectly, she reported. Both fleets are completely disabled. Dr. Kim Ji-won joined them, her eyes bright with excitement. The ancient technology was even more advanced than we thought. Once we figured out how to activate their defensive systems, it was easy to modify them for our purposes. Admiral Kim Tae-ho nodded with satisfaction. And the resource extraction teams? Lieutenant Commander Choi Min-ho's voice came over the communication system from the planets below. Already in progress, sir. We're extracting the rare minerals from all 3 planets and preparing them for distribution. What happened next shocked both alien fleets even more than losing their power. Human ships began emerging from hidden positions throughout the system, but they weren't coming to attack. Instead, they flew to the planets and began mining operations. But these weren't ordinary mining operations. The humans weren't taking the resources for themselves or for Earth. Instead, they were packaging the rare minerals and loading them onto transport ships bound for the civilian populations of both the Zephyrian and Kellite homeworlds. Ambassador Thailand could only watch through his emergency viewer as human ships bypassed his government entirely and sent cargo directly to Zephyrian cities and colonies. The same thing was happening with Kellite worlds. The humans were giving the resources directly to the people, not to the governments that had been fighting over them. At the same time, other human teams were setting up research stations around each of the ancient Nexus builder sites. Dr. Kim Ji-won supervised the installation of equipment that would allow scientists from across the galaxy to study the advanced technology. Admiral Kim Tae-ho's voice suddenly echoed across all the disabled ships in both fleets. His words were calm but filled with quiet authority that made even the alien commanders listen carefully. "You had centuries to solve this peacefully," he said. "You chose war over wisdom, pride over progress. You let corporations manipulate you into fighting while they profited from your hatred." The Admiral paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. "We have solved your problem for you. The Nexus system is now under human protection. The resources will be distributed fairly to your civilian populations, not hoarded by your military forces. The ancient technology will be studied by international teams for the benefit of all galactic civilizations." Both Thailand and Commander Blexith felt a chill run through their bodies as the human continued speaking. "Any attempt to militarize this system again will be met with permanent occupation. We will not allow bureaucracy and pride to cause unnecessary suffering when we have the power to prevent it." As human ships began towing the disabled alien vessels to neutral repair stations, both fleet commanders realized the same terrifying truth. They had awakened something far more dangerous than each other, a species that refused to let politics and greed hurt innocent people, and which possessed the power to enforce their decisions. The Nexus system became the galaxy's first human protectorate, and word spread quickly through space about what had happened. Other alien civilizations with ongoing disputes began quietly reaching out to human mediators, hoping to solve their problems before the humans decided to solve them instead.